Good morning. Welcome with Coffee with the Pastor. We're looking at the Sermon on the Mount. We're in the section where Jesus said, unless your righteousness be better than the Pharisees. And the Pharisees were known for being righteous. And so he says, your righteousness needs to be better than theirs. So he starts going with the law. He says, you've heard it said you shall not murder, and the Pharisees big on not murdering, but he says, you got to go deeper. He says on that same spectrum is anger, raka, full, and you can't treat people with disrespect, and you can't look at somebody as worthless. Today, we're going to talk about adultery, and we begin with verse 27. And Jesus said, you have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I tell you, anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. So Jesus says, you're not to commit adultery. But he said, he goes further than that. He goes deeper than that. He says, you're not even to look at another with lust in your heart. I think it was Billy Graham who said, you know, you can't help the first thought, but you don't have to let birds build a nest in your hair. Adultery is something that the church really needs to talk about, because all the polls and all the studies I've seen states that Christians' rate of adultery is about the same as non-believers. And that amazes me. But as Christians, we are called to take up our cross and follow Jesus. Part of taking up our cross is limiting our desires. We all have desires. We have a desire for food. We have desire for intimate sexual relations. But if they're not limited, they will destroy us. All of us have an emptiness in us that can only be filled with God. And if someone tries to fill their void with sexual immorality, it will never satisfy, it will never fulfill. That's not what desire was meant to do. That void, that emptiness was meant to be filled by God. And so he says, you're not even to look with lust upon another. And he says, if a man looks at lust with a woman with lust in his heart, he's already committed adultery. So he says, you need to go beyond just not doing the act. You need to not be doing the things that lead up to the act. You don't need to be thinking that way. Paul says to capture every thought. It's important. And then Jesus has this very difficult thing that he says, if your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go to hell. I remember I used to give New Testaments out with people who just become Christians, and I'd suggest, hey, start reading this New Testament. You'll start with the Gospels where you get to know Jesus. And a lot of them would get to those verses, and I'd get a call, or they'd talk to me about the next Sunday. They go, what about that? And, you know, I said, well, Jesus is not saying to literally take it off. What he's saying is that sin's serious. And if you could quit sinning by cutting off your hand, if your hand was making you sin, it would be better than sinning. Now, that's hard for us to understand. But it'd be better to gouge out your eye, it'd be better to cut off your hand than to sin. And sin is very serious, but we don't take sin seriously enough. We don't take the sin of anger and treating people with disrespect and treating people as worthless. We don't take the sin of lust in our heart, lusting after someone else and committing adultery. We do not take that seriously enough. And Jesus says you need to take it serious. It is very serious. And it leads to where you do not have fellowship with God. It leads to destruction. It leads to all kinds of problems. So today, I ask that you consider limiting your desires. Limiting your sexual thoughts to your spouse, limiting your desires in all realms is a good thing. Well, I hope you have a blessed day. We'll look at the very thorny subject of divorce tomorrow when Jesus deals with it. We'll take a look at it and discuss what Jesus taught about divorce tomorrow from the Sermon on the Mount. And you have a good day, and it's good to see all of you. And I'll see you tomorrow.